Greetings. My name is Paul Zablocki, Development Gifts Officer at Canisius High School, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to another episode of Conversations with Canisius, the web series where we connect alumni from around the world with the classrooms on Delaware Avenue. Today, my guest is George Tracy from the class of 1981. George, thank you for taking the opportunity for joining us, and why don't we start by sharing with us your journey since you left Canisius High School.
Sounds great, and great to be here, and glad to connect with the folks back in Buffalo. You know, I went to Canisius High. I grew up in Hamburg and broadened my horizon by leaving the suburbs to go to the city for high school, and that was a real eye-opener experience, and helped me broaden my horizon too in terms of what I looked at for colleges. So I went down the road to Syracuse, which was a great experience of, again, broadening the perspective of what I was exposed to and so on. From there, while I was there, my parents moved to Colorado Springs, Colorado. And I came out to Colorado Springs in June of '85. And in July of '85, found a job with a healthcare company based in St. Louis at the time. Joined them in July of '85 in Colorado Springs, and I've lived there since, and I'll soon be celebrating my 36th anniversary this July with that company. And really, that's my journey to this point in time. Spend a lot of time on the road with work. Also have had the opportunity the last 5 years actually to come back to Buffalo for work fairly often, and allowed me to connect with some of my Canisius classmates on a pretty frequent basis, which was a real great opportunity. In addition to the network does travel well. You know, I get to DC a fair amount on business and connect up with Canisius folks there, especially, and then live part-time in Hilton Head, where I also bump into a lot of Canisius folks this direction. So,
you know, it's kind of a remarkable thing for someone to have a career that spans as long as you've had with one. How did your time at the high school prepare you for the variety of roles that you served? And why don't you say a little bit about what your company
does? Yeah, our parent company is a company called Team Health, and we are a large hospital-based services practice management company. So physicians work for Team Health in a variety of settings, principally emergency medicine, anesthesia, and hospital medicine programs. In addition, the company's got about 20 markets where there are post-acute care physician practices that visit patients in post-acute settings, such as long-term cares and so on. I am personally still involved in the company in St. Louis that Team Health acquired in 2002 that focuses on staffing healthcare professionals, physicians, and nurses, all types, in military hospitals around the country and some VAs. So focused on government markets. In addition to that, I have responsibility for 2 other service lines. And for the last 5 years, a 4th one that just got blended into another service line. And that would be temporary physician staffing, of locum tenens, it's called as an industry. And Access Nurse is a 24/7 nurse triage outsourced solution for health systems and health plans. And then the 4th business was one that folks in Buffalo would recognize, which is the immediate care locations are part of the Team Health family of companies, and had the privilege of working with that group for the last 5 years. And so my title is president of the affiliated clinical services service lines within Team Health.
So, you know, you're a young man from Hamburg, you find your way to 1180 Delaware Avenue. How did that get you ready to handle all those different responsibilities?
You know what, it's, one of the big things today in business and, of course, in society in general is diversity and inclusion. And I tell you what, the diversity of individuals from all walks of life, myself included, being the eighth of eight kids from a family that was very, lower end middle class, and individuals from all parts of the city with all different backgrounds was a tremendous experience. And it teaches you how to build relationships with individuals that you may not know, from the start, and or for a long period of time. So you've got to kind of, listen to people, hear what they're saying, understand their perspective, know where they're coming from, and figure a way to find commonality. And I cannot overstate that opportunity that Canisius provides individuals, especially given, the enclave and the little neighborhood I grew up in Hamburg. So,
one of Canisius is a Jesuit school, and the Jesuits have been in the business of education for over 450 years. And St. Ignatius was the founder of the order, and there's especially over the last 30 or 40 years, the mission of Jesuit schools has been forming students in the Ignatian spiritual way, or being conscious of serving others, men and women for others. And how has having a Jesuit education played a role in your life?
It was a tremendous foundation of kind of the big picture and looking at the whole self and understanding everybody you're dealing with has got that need also, recognizing where they're coming from and how to be empathetic, understanding, and just really an opportunity to really come to common ground with individuals. So I think that's a huge foundation that the education at Canisius taught me. In addition to just the curriculum makes you that way in and of itself, regardless of the teachings. In my business career, I've been a big believer in you find your kind of your North Star and so on, which is a lot of what is basis of the the teachings of St. Ignatius Loyola, and when it gets down to it, it's kind of the layperson's way of saying it of what he taught. So all great stuff.
Absolutely. No, thank you. The world has been has been dealing with this pandemic, the COVID pandemic, for over 12 months. You work in healthcare, and you work in specifically staffing, healthcare professionals. How has the pandemic? How have you guys handled the pandemic, and where do you see it going?
Well, as an organization, I'm really just, totally fortunate to watch. And in fact, this morning we had our monthly emerging infectious diseases task force meeting, and watch all these brilliant clinicians. I'm not a clinician at all, but I'm responsible for, figuring out in the tea leaves, okay, where are the clinicians going to be needed and so on. So I sit as part of that group and listen in. And just watching what we did as an organization of mobilizing individuals to go from places that were locked down with no work to places that really needed extra help, and we did a lot of that a year ago. It was fascinating, and it was very rewarding to see, and we were honored to support those clinicians in doing that. So that's job one, is taking care of the clinicians that are on the front lines, which our organization is, one of about 16,000 clinicians, predominantly on the front line, and seeing the stuff and treating it, and really the front door of it. So being part of that, extremely, feel honored to be part of that team. The end result of this, so as we saw this kind of rolling out, was the collaboration and the communication that they shared with each other in terms of their level of effectiveness of certain treatments and so on, and the latest word on treatments was really helpful. A lot of that is really where we are today, which I feel like is pretty well a different world, and everybody, I would hope, recognizes that too. That we're not in the forest fire every day fighting this pandemic. The other thing coming out of this, though, is it's changed the behavior of patients and where they go and where they want to go and where they need to go, frankly, because they're not out and about and doing the normal social activities that cause them to need care, whether it's, beer softball leagues or whatever, where people, want to be weekend warriors and go out and play sports. That just hasn't been happening. So it impacts our business greatly. And then the patterns of where people are going to go get their care in the future have been, I think, permanently changed in terms of, their comfort with doing things digitally, and either whether telemedicine is kind of the big thing via video, but even further than that is, some of the specialties are really lend themselves to like a chat kind of environment too. So I think healthcare has changed from that. Regardless, there's certainly a shortage of people on the front lines to see patients, and that will continue. And sometimes some of what has happened over the last year has accelerated that shortage because people have chosen to leave the profession and make their exit and retire, or whatever the case may be. So I think that also puts us in a unique position of trying to fill those gaps in what we do, and an important role of that. So,
George, the pandemic has caused the high school to adjust how we had, also how my office connects, engages with alumni. The reason why we're doing this web series is because we can't bring alums into the classroom, and we're trying to create opportunities to kind of celebrate our alumni accomplishments and careers. For someone who went to Syracuse for college and then moved out to Colorado, how have you stayed engaged with Canisius and with your classmates?
I think that's an individual nature thing at the heart of it, and I'm a social person by nature, which has certainly been a big part of my career, is building relationships with individuals and so on. So, I just made an effort to stay in touch with people. So it's up to the individual to make that effort. And I guess the real challenge for Canisius is, and when I think about the 70 or 60% of our class that doesn't stay as engaged as the other 30 or 40%, what does Canisius do to make that happen, or how should people be motivated to do that? I guess is really the heart of the question. And I think doing things like this, I listened in on the Zoom session that was put on about being on the front lines by Dr. Cosgrove, who's also a colleague of mine at Team Health. So those offerings have to speak, if you get them broad enough, really catch somebody's interest, whether it's a book club that's virtual or something, not everybody's as gregarious, but certainly there's always something that is just the breadth of the curriculum from the Jesuits, and the breadth of the diversity of individuals that really, have to help people get engaged. I think the growth that the school went through back in the 90s or whenever it was, when it went from about 600 students in my day to 800 today, was really a testament to the power of what the school offers and the support of the alums. So I think it's really important for everybody to be engaged in it and support that, and ensure that the organization is sustainable over time.
George, it's been a few years for both yourself and myself since we were juniors and seniors sitting in the classrooms in the feature wing. But as you reflect on your career and your experiences, what advice would you give to our current juniors and seniors who are looking at the rest of their lives in front of them.
I would say first and foremost, make the most of the time at Canisius, and and just enjoy it and learn from it. And then as you go out in the wider world, just keep in mind the big picture, the whole self that you are, the whole environment you're operating in, the whole environment you go live in, and so on. And just remember, it's all part of the big picture with one goal in mind, whatever that is, whether it's on a business front, on a family front, or on a community front. And just keep your eye on the ball on that goal, and understand the impact that you individually can make, and use that broad curriculum that is really, really strong foundation of, fundamentals. I think about it today, in composing emails or letters, the sentence structure that we learned, and, the ability to take Latin for, 3 years, which helped that in the English classes with Shakespeare and so on. Just use all those things, because you've got the tools coming out of that environment, and make the most of it while you're there to get those tools, and use those tools to contribute the best you can in whatever environment you're in. So that's what I would say is really the things to focus on and keep an eye on.
So. George, it's clear that you have effectively used all the tools in your toolbox to hear a career at one place for 36 years. I mean, it's a remarkable thing, and thank you for taking time out of your schedule today to reflect on your time at the high school, and also to kind of share your professional and personal insights with the community. I know I really enjoyed it, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, thank you, and thanks for the invite, and glad to do it, and glad to do anything I could do to help in the future.